This small and inexpensive slider might be the perfect tool for you if you've wanted to get super smooth motion in some of your shots. And I want to show you how to use a gimbal with this to get amazing smooth tracked shots. Hey, hope you're doing well. My name is Jake Sloan and I create content here for solo creators on the go who want to improve their videography and their photography skills so that they can increase their income. So I do reviews of equipment that makes the process easier and tips and tutorials on how to use that equipment and set yourself up to be able to tell better stories. Disclaimer, this was sent to me for free by Zeapon, but they are not paying for this review and they didn't ask me to say anything other than to use the gimbal for a while and then give my honest opinion and feedback about it. Real quick, I'm going to break down the specs of this little inexpensive camera slider for you. This is a 13-inch long double distance slider, which basically means that when you have it on a tripod or on this particular stand, you can make it have a total slide length of 21 inches or so. It has fluid dampening technology, which gives you a super smooth slide when you're using your hands. Because it has fluid dampening technology, it will also slide on its own when you simply tilt it one direction or the other. It's smooth, quiet, and incredibly well built out of machined aluminum. It offers 1/4-inch thread and 3/8 threaded holes at the bottom with a 1/4-inch thread at the top, and it supports camera rigs weighing up to 11 pounds, which is what they say their safety payload is, but it does say it has a max payload of 17.6 pounds. The cost for the slider alone is $230, but if you want this tabletop stand, then you're going to spend $300, and they just came out with the motor for it that you can buy the slider, the stand, and the motor for $400. Now, why would you want a slider when you could use a gimbal or maybe a fluid head tripod? Shots like this are very difficult to get when you're hand holding a gimbal because no matter how hard you try, you still get some strange up and down motion, which becomes pretty evident in the footage. The other thing that sliders provide is a great side-to-side motion, which gives you a lot of movement in the shot. And when you combine them with a fluid head, you can get a great parallax effect of any object that you're trying to get really good B-roll of. So whether you want a pull-in or push-out shot using a slider, or you want a side-to-side to reveal something, sliders offer something that most other things don't, is that you get this incredibly smooth, super stable, beautiful shots of products or movement in your scene that you wouldn't otherwise get any other way without any sort of up and down, forward to back motion at all, except for exactly what you want with the slider. Now, there are a couple of things that I really like about the way Zeapon approached the design of this particular slider. One is, of course, that it's a double length from what the actual slider is. The slider itself is compact and has these very handy little locking buttons to lock the motion if you're going to put it in your camera bag or take it with you somewhere. But the other thing I appreciate about is this tabletop stand here, which gives you not only a good solid surface to work from when you're working on a tabletop, and you can still use the full length of the slider, but it also comes with this really nice little quick release system, which if you turn this knob here, you can attach this plate to your tripod and then be able to set this on a table to get shots if you want. And then as soon as you're ready to put it back on a tripod, you simply attach it back to the quick release plate and use this lever to clamp it back down. So that makes it really versatile and really easy to use in a lot of different situations. I would say if all you're going to use this for is product shots on a surface or maybe some slight motion in a scene that you're filming, then the slider alone with a good tripod would work. If you want to move it around a lot between a tripod and a surface, then definitely get the tabletop stand. I really like the tabletop stand as it is. And if you want to film yourself or use this in an interview situation to get motion back and forth on your B camera, to be able to cut back and forth between your interview, which makes editing interviews so much easier, then adding the motorized system would be really smart because then you can set it up to just basically track back and forth, and it just gives you a nice little bit of extra motion to be able to cut back and forth between when you're editing your interview. And when I started this video off, I said I wanted to show you a way to get really smooth tracking shots by combining a gimbal with this slider. So the idea is actually really pretty simple. What we want to do is use something like the DJI Ronin SC or the Weebill S, or Moza Aircross 2 would work too. Any gimbal that has object tracking ability will work. And what we're going to do is set this up on the slider and then use it to track our subject. And we'll get some really nice parallax tracking shots, just like you would get if you had a much more expensive slider, but at a lot less cost if you already have a gimbal. I'm going to attach the gimbal directly to the slider, attach my phone. Everything's good. It is now time to turn the gimbal on. Now I showed this in another video and there'll be a card that'll pop up here, but if you want to do tracking, go to Create, you go to Active Track Pro, And then whatever is in the green square is going to be tracked. Now, the simplest way to track is hit the trigger. Now we're tracking that. Unlock the slider. We'll start, let it sit for a second, and then just very smoothly now, if you want to get more of a parallax effect, you want to get less vertical and a little more horizontal. And so I'm going to lower the slider down so we can get more of the background in the image. All right, so we've kind of re-aimed things. We're going to do the same thing. Pull the slider toward us in a really even, smooth motion, as smooth as we can. Now, one of the other things you can do is use gravity to your advantage and just tilt the slider so that it slides side to side. So I'll set that up real quick, show you how it's done, and then show you some of the other shots that I've shot with this thing so far. All I've done is use the bowl on my tripod to give it a tilt, and then all I have to do is set the slider to its top position and let it roll down the rest of the way. And it gives you some incredibly smooth tracking shots. Okay, we got this set about where we want it. I'm gonna pull the gimbal over where I want it. You get the cross right on the center there. Start it tracking. Start recording, and then just let go. Now, if you don't have a gimbal that does object tracking, it's not that big a deal. You can use this with a fluid head and still get very smooth, really nice parallax shots, but it's a little bit more work and it's a little bit more practice to get them as close to as smooth as with the gimbal. However, I found that using the gimbal with object tracking is incredibly effective at getting really great parallax tracking shots of products. Now, is this slider an absolute necessity for everybody? No, but if you're somebody who does a lot of real estate work, or if you do a lot of product video work, or if you do a lot of food work, then this would add a tremendous amount of production value to your shots, because adding some subtle motion into those shots really adds interest and makes them feel much more high-end and the production value to be much higher than without that type of motion in it. If the motorized version does what Zeapon says it will do, then it would be a fantastic thing to add to your kit if you do a lot of interviews, which is something that I do. I just haven't been able to test the motorized version out yet, so I can't really comment as to how well it actually works and how well it would work in that specific scenario. Now, if you want to know what gear I think is really essential for solo creators to have, I put together a playlist right here of some of the gear that I use almost every single day on shoots, so you can click or tap and watch some of those videos. If you have any specific questions about this slider, then let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Cheers.